Okay, so it was a little bit, maybe over a year ago now, that I built my neighbors a massive chicken coop because they have lots of chickens. Well, I have finally given in and decided to get chickens of my own, which means I needed my own coop. Now, I only want 10, 15 chickens, or so I say now. So my coop is a little bit more compact. I made sure to build it off the ground to keep the snakes out, 4 nesting boxes, 3 roosting bars, a removable panel in the back that can be taken off, and then a drop-down hatch up front so that I can quickly and easily sweep out the coop when changing the litter. Alright, let's get into the building process. Big thank you to Kara for sponsoring this video. Stay tuned at the end to hear about their amazing service. This coop is made up from a bed full of 2x4s, a 4x4, and a few sheets of plywood. If you would like to build your own, I do have a set of plans with a material shopping list, a cut list, and all of the dimensions used. I started off by offloading all of my material from the truck and onto my Armor Tool mobile workbench. I started by flipping the wings out on my miter saw stand and cutting down the pieces needed for the 4 side walls and the entire base. I labeled each part as I was cutting it, so when I moved to assembly, I could very quickly grab the joints needed. Starting with the base, I laid out my 4-post and also the stretchers that will span between them. After lining up my boards, I used a scrap board and a Bessie click clamp on the front side to keep the board flush while I toe-nailed in from the back. After repeating on all 4 sides, I threw in the center support and then also some corner gussets. This coop is 5 foot by 4 foot because I read each chicken should be given roughly 2 to 3 square feet per chicken. When it came time to cut a deck, I laid a sheet of ply on my workbench and used my track saw to rip it to length. I specifically chose untreated because I wasn't sure about having treated wood around the ladies. Anybody else deal with short arm syndrome? Next, the deck could be set into place, squared up, and then attached. Next, I started framing the walls directly on top of the deck. You see I'm using Titebond 3 here, and I did that for a lot of the build because it is a waterproof wood glue. But later I switched over to Titebond's excellent construction adhesive. Either is great, long-lasting, and good for projects that are being placed outside. One thing to consider if you tackle this project, I chose to build this in my shop so that I could work in the AC and have all of my shop's tools and surfaces to utilize. But if you don't want to mess with moving it out and into place after it's complete, then I 100% recommend building it on location where you will want the coop to live. Before attaching the framed walls on the deck, I laid down a decent amount of construction adhesive, then made sure the walls were flush to all sides. You can see I'm applying slight pressure in the center with the clamp to keep the wall from falling over and to allow me to make small movements with it. For my coop, I'm going to be using the deep litter method, meaning I won't need to completely empty out the litter except once or twice a year. When it's time to do that though, I want to be able to sweep from the back to the very front quickly and easily. So I intentionally left off a bottom plate on the front and back walls, which keeps the floor flush and on one level. Now, something really important in chicken coops is ventilation. Especially here in Texas with the heat, I wanted each side of the coop to have a window that can be left open for the majority of the year. But yes, it does eventually get cold here, so I also wanted a way to close it up. For mine, I'm simply using a sheet of plywood that will slide open and close. Before placing it in its track though, I very quickly added a handle. I'll be placing the handle inside the coop, then once or twice a year, whenever the weather changes, I can reach inside and use it to slide it either open or closed. I clamped a spacer, just made from some scrap, on either side before picking up the window system to set into place. Whoops, don't forget the window. If you place it in first and center it, it actually makes picking up the entire system a lot easier. Okay, and that's one window down, so let's repeat for the back. Here, the opening was too large for a spacer, so I used scraps, but I ended up just clamping them to the height needed and gave myself a ledge to set the window system on top of while I moved around to attach it to the framing studs. And that's window 2 done. Then on the third wall with a window, I dropped this one down lower to be more in line where the door of the coop will be. This will be just a very small opening, but I hope by putting this window in line with it, it'll also create a nice cross breeze for the ladies. With that, I moved on to sliding off more 2x4s and cutting to length the pieces needed for the roof framing. I wanted to build out the entire roof system, then lift it into place as one unit. To join things together, I used my self-adjusting armor tool jig to create some pocket holes. Then I laid them out, used some construction adhesive, and attached things. Now, it might be wide, but it isn't heavy. So next, I took my time walking the system up the ladder, setting it into rough position, then going to the other side and pulling it completely over to where it needed to go. I once again cut spacers to clamp into place, but this time they're spacers for the amount of overhang needed to ensure the roof was going on squarely. This method is a lot easier than hopping down to pull a tape on all four corners repeatedly. Next, I attached a few more framing members to support things here and there, then started working on the second roof. The second roof pitch does make the build a little more complicated, so if you want to simplify it, you can certainly take it out and leave the roof at one single pitch. However, I love the look it gives the coop, and it also provides a little bit of protection from the rain to this top window. I again built the system on my workbench and then moved it into place as one unit afterwards. I moved back to my sheet of plywood and ripped down two pieces that will cover the back portion of the roof as well as that smaller little bump out. Then I awkwardly, but carefully, and successfully, moved the sheet into place. I suppose I could have just moved a taller ladder into place to nail the board down, but I hate moving ladders. So I just climbed up onto the roof, made sure to keep an eye on that fan above me, and nailed it down around the perimeter. I repeated on that front bump out, but this side is short enough for me to stay on my step stool and still reach it. As I was working up here, I also cut and then attached some 1x boards to be the fascia. Okay, on to making some of the accessories. Let's start with the nesting boxes. These are where the chickens will hop up and lay their eggs. Hopefully anyways. I read that these should be about a foot off the ground or the chickens might not use them. After building the body of the unit on my workbench, I quickly attached a front lip to each box. This is to keep the eggs from being able to roll out on their own. However, I ended up coming back and increasing the height of these to about 3 inches to prevent the birds from kicking out their straw in each box. To install this one, I struggled just a tad bit. I only left myself a 1/16 here, and I guess that was just too tight of a tolerance. I grabbed my palm belt sander and gave the inside of the stud a few quick laps and then tried it again. When the box moved into place, I had a Bessie quick clamp ready to go so that I could temporarily hold it while moving to the other side. I threw a level on it to make sure that it was plumb, then moved to the inside and attached with screws. I love it when things start taking shape. For a lid, we got to keep those birds dry. I attached 2 strips of plywood, one thinner and thick strip along the back, and then another wider piece to cover the rest. This will allow me to add a hinge between the 2 pieces, which in turn will give me a lid that I can lift and lower to retrieve the eggs or just check on the chickens. Later on, after I add the siding and trim, I'll add a hook and chain here so I can leave the door open for a short duration if need be. Alrighty, moving back to the windows quickly. Next, I added some hardware cloth to all 3 windows. This will allow me to leave the windows open and get a breeze in, but it'll prevent predators from being able to get into the coop and eat my chickens. I used a scrap and clamp to hold down one side while I made my cut at the length needed. Now, you can cut this one piece at a time with some side cutters if that's all you have. However, if you have a cutoff wheel and a grinder, it really makes very quick work of it. When determining the size, I would leave about 1 square width of material overhanging on the frame, and this just gives you room to get a staple in to attach it. Now this will have siding over it, so you don't have to go crazy with staples, just enough to keep it in place. And I'm gonna go ahead and stop part 1 right there. I divided it into 2 because while it is a simple build, it is time consuming because of all of the parts. So in the next video, I'm gonna be covering making the roosting bars, the 2 ramps, adding the siding, the trim, the roofing, and that rear and front panels for cleaning out the coop. Don't forget that I do have a set of plans if you're interested in building your own, and I've also linked to the set of plans for the larger coop that I built my neighbors. Everything's linked for you down in the description. I'll see you on the next one. Real quick, I want to thank this video's sponsor, which is Care Of. As I get older and busier, I'm actively looking for ways to take care of my body, keeping it healthy, supported, and in good shape. When I was approached by Care Of to do a partnership, I was excited to find a very convenient way to get vitamins and supplements that my body needs so that I can feel my best. All I had to do was take a very short, fun quiz and answer questions about my diet, lifestyle, fitness, and health needs. I got my results right away of the recommended vitamins I should be taking. And then within a few days, I got a package shipped right to my door containing my personalized daily vitamin packets. These are an easy-to-go packets that I can throw in my backpack and take whenever convenient during my busy project-filled days. My vitamin packs contain things like fish oil, iron, and even magnesium, which promotes bone health and can impact energy and sleep. If you're interested in learning more about Care Of and taking the quiz yourself, then you can click the link down in the description and use the code AprilW to get a limited 25% off your first month's order. Big thank you to Care Of for not only keeping me healthier, but supporting what I do.